As you know, I want to talk with you about requirements engineering and how I use generative AI, especially ChatGPT, in this line of work. First things first, I think I've made the experience when I talk about AI, it's kind of a sensitive topic. There's a lot of opinions about it, a lot of maybe fear and uncertainty. And for me personally, I didn't really have contact with ChatGPT prior to joining you. So I don't know, like 10 weeks ago, I maybe did like 2 or 3 prompts in ChatGPT. When I joined you, I thought about using ChatGPT to improve my writing because I'm not a native English speaker and because a lot of my documentation is in English. I thought, okay, maybe ChatGPT can help me with the translation and the spelling of my content. And I very quickly realized that I can do a lot more with generative AI. And now I'm at the point when I do requirements engineering, I regularly come to the limit of prompts which I can like send to ChatGPT. And already thought about maybe I need a second account because I use it very, very much. It's always on my second screen. It replaced Google. Also, I think what's important, I don't really have a clue about AI. I'm no AI expert. I'm also wouldn't even consider myself a requirements engineering expert. This is all like learned on the job, and the field is so vast and so deep that I really barely scratch the surface of it. So if you have any questions later, just keep in mind, I'm new to this stuff also. I can barely like describe the difference between an agent and a model. And it's a lot of new things for me too. What I planned for today is to split the talk in about 4 parts. First, I want to talk about why requirements engineering is such a good use case for generative AI. And I will do that by showing you some mental models which are significant in requirements engineering and how ChatGPT supports the work in this kind of challenges you have in requirements engineering. This will be the main part, and I hope that after this, you can maybe find some similarities in your line of work where you say, okay, this is, I also encountered this kind of problems and maybe you can use it. Then we will do a small hand-on session where I show how I really work with ChatGPT. And then I have a slide at the end where I talk a little bit about what's the current bottlenecks are and what I think, what are the potentials. And then we have time for some Q&A. I will try to answer your questions. Okay, so we're going to start with some important mental models in requirements engineering and how generative AI can help you with these kind of challenges. I think the first thing that's important is that we try to define what requirements engineering actually is. And in my opinion, if you do requirements engineering, your main job is to accelerate product decision making. You have to do a lot of decision making when you build a software product about how it should function, how it should look, how it should generate revenue, and so on. And your job as a requirements engineer is to make sure that those decisions are made in a timely manner. And you generally have 2 tools to accelerate this product decision making. The first one is you document product decisions. You write a conference page how a product should work. And by documenting these requirements or these functionality, you are making decisions about the product. So the first thing is you document product decisions, or if you can't do that, you prepare information for product decision. So maybe you prepare information for a meeting, or you gather questions, or you just work with information to then later on make decisions for the product about that. And both lines of work are in essence, content creation. You create conference pages, you can create Jira tickets, you create presentation, handouts, and so on. And as we know, generative AI is pretty good at content creation. And so there's like a fundamental match between the strength or the needs for requirements engineering and the strength of ChatGPT and other generative AIs. To make it a little bit more clear, one thing you do a lot when you do requirements engineering is you go up and down the ladder of abstraction. What I mean by that is that when you write about how a product should work or what the requirements of a product are, you generally talk about a product on a very abstract level. Maybe you summarize it in a little presentation or do a little email about how the product should work, and you go very concrete and very detailed about how a product should work. For example, if you write a Jira ticket, then you have to be very concrete, very specific. So there's a lot of content you create when you're doing requirements engineering or when you're working on a product, generally speaking. And the interesting thing is that most of this content is more or less the same. It just has a different level of abstraction. So if you can write all the Jira tickets of a project or a product, then you can also write a summary. You can also do a presentation because it's the same information. It's just handled differently. And ChatGPT comes in handy, especially when you talk about products in an abstract way. It can also come in handy if you need to talk about it in a concrete way. But yeah, there's different strengths about how ChatGPT can help you. It's not surprising that ChatGPT and other generative AIs are a little less powerful the more concrete you are, because the more concrete you get with product details and decisions, the more context matters. So if you want to describe a product on a Jira ticket level, you have to know really every detail about a product. And if you talk about it more in a general way, not so much context is needed. And of course, ChatGPT has to understand the product to help you with that. And it's easier for ChatGPT to understand it on an abstract level than on a very specific level. So generally speaking, if you write about a product in an abstract way, ChatGPT is very strong. If the more concrete you get, the more difficult it gets. And I will show you later why that's the case. So this is the first, let's say, use case for ChatGPT. You can write about a product and just transform the information in very different formats. I will show you later in the hands-on session how it looks in practice. The second thing is, when you work with a product, you generally can categorize the information you encounter in different kind of ways. And one way I find very helpful is the knowns and unknowns. Probably most of you have heard of it. This concept is or was established or got famous in a documentary, The Unknown Known. Very good documentary. I can definitely recommend it. And in this documentary, Donald Rumsfeld talks about what, if he has to do a decision, what kind of information he considers and doesn't consider. And he categorizes it in 4 different types. And you will hear a lot of known and unknowns now. It can get a little bit confusing, but I tried to break it down as simple as possible. Generally speaking, every info, when you talk about information about a product, you can categorize all information in these 4 types of information. There are things that we know that are relevant, the so-called known knowns in the left upper corner. And the things we know that we don't know yet, known unknowns, top right corner. So this is generally the space of information we are aware of, either that we have to figure it out, known unknowns, or that we just can apply our knowledge to known knowns. And there are things we don't know, unknown knowns and unknown unknowns. Unknown knowns are pretty weird. These are like informations we have that we know about, but we don't know that they are relevant to the product or to the decision. And there are things we don't know, we even don't know. And when you work in requirements engineering, you handle these information differently. Starting at the top left, things that we know, okay, we just write those down. Okay, the product should do this and that. If this happens, this should be done, and so on. Also, things that we know that we don't know, we also write it down. We write down, okay, we have to figure out this and we have to figure out that and stuff like that. So this is probably a documentation of questions or problems and so on. A little bit more tricky, it gets like below the iceberg. Things that we don't know, that we know, that are relevant, unknown knowns, are just like things that we have learned in the past and help us now. It's something we can't really control because by definition it's unknown. And then there are the things we don't know that they are relevant and we should figure it out, and there's nothing more than pray that that's not so important, hopefully. What's interesting is that if you work with ChatGPT, it can help you in each quadrant in a different kind of way. So if you have these 4 quadrants, when we start with the things we know and we should just document, ChatGPT can help with auto-completion, styling, and also like structuring your thoughts. So you can just dump your ideas into ChatGPT and tell it, okay, please make it nice, make it look good, structure it, make the language in a way that you want. And it's more or less like a helper for documentation or writing. For things that you know that you should figure out, known unknowns, ChatGPT can work as a Google replacement. If you know you have a question that you should answer, you can ask ChatGPT, and maybe it can help you with that. And also it works as a sparring partner. You can give your thoughts to ChatGPT, you can get feedback and try to figure out these unknowns with the help of ChatGPT. For things that are unknown but are relevant to the project, ChatGPT can help by explaining concepts in a way which are easily understandable for you. You can tell ChatGPT to explain it to me like I'm 5. You can generally acquire knowledge in a very effective way because you can manage the abstraction about how you get this information. So generally, ChatGPT is a pretty good mentor or teacher of concepts you are not foreign with. And last but not least, for unknown unknowns, so things that you are not aware of, ChatGPT can work in a way that it can like challenge your concepts. You can tell ChatGPT to be very critical, to find weakness in your concept, to rate your different solutions or find inconsistency in your documentation. And ChatGPT is pretty good in challenging your idea about how you should do a solution. So it's not like ChatGPT is only like, let's say, a pool of information which you can like use for yourself. It's really more like a collaborative thing, which you can work with in different ways, like you work with our team members. So this is very interesting to like improve the quality of your concept and your documentation of a product in different kind of ways. Lastly, one concept I also find very interesting, and I can't really like explain it very good, but I'll try it, is when you write a specification, you generally write about it in different point of views. You write about design, how it should look. You write about how the business should work, how you should make money, the technology, the architecture, and so on. As a spec of a product is not like one point of view, it's a lot of different point of views. And generally, as a requirements engineer, you like start working on it, you start writing your documentation, and you come to a point where when you are at the border of your knowledge and you need to talk with someone. You need maybe to talk with a designer, you need to talk with a developer or with an expert in legal. And you talk with them, you work more, you talk maybe again later, and at one point you are done. And you do this in all different categories of the product, and you do it in like a different stages. This depends on the product, like what are the main needs or decisions that should be done in the product, and it also depends on your personal knowledge. Some people are more familiar with design questions, so they can progress this, so they can make more progress by themselves. Some people are technologically more knowledgeable, so they can do a lot of work there by themselves. But either way, at some point, you have to do some collaboration. What's interesting with ChatGPT, and when you use it as a sparring partner to bounce off your ideas, you can eliminate a lot of these early exchanges. Because generally speaking, if you start writing, you maybe come very early to a question, you don't know the answer, but it's not it's not a very hard question, you just don't know it. You can ask ChatGPT, and if the answer you get is like convincing for you, you can push the need for collaboration to a later stage, which is also like interesting because like the preparation you can do alone for like a discussion or collaboration, what will happen, can be much more sufficient or much more advanced. So generally, what I experience is that the need for collaboration in the early stages of the specification decreases a lot by using ChatGPT. Of course, if you get like this kind of information and act on it, you are still responsible for that. And if it's wrong, then it's wrong. But that happens in software development and in writing designs. So these are concepts which are important in requirements engineering and match pretty well with ChatGPT. And I'm going to show you a little bit more in the hands-on session now. I have two parts I want to show you. First, how I train and use my different models, and then how I recycle my content. I first thought about to do a real requirements engineering session, but it's actually pretty boring because it's mostly writing, reading, thinking, writing again, copy pasting. So yeah, it's not. So I took like a little sample size out of it, which I would like to show you. So I'm gonna switch real quick. Also, we are doing a live demo now, which is in itself pretty challenging, but to do a live demo with an AI is probably next level. So see, okay, I think that's it. So first, I want to show you a little bit about like how my models work. You can see here on the left, these are my different prompts. I call them models, but yeah, I think that's not very important. And I categorize my models in three types of ways. I have nodes, N ones, which are just like meeting preparation and stuff like that. I just dump my thoughts into that and get some documents out of it, which can use for my meetings. It's not the most interesting one. Much more interesting are the products and the services. Product models are models which I train a lot on the product I want to build. So if I get a product from you, maybe like the MDB rewrite, I start teaching the model every decision that we want to do or that we made about the product. This will take a while. I do that because I want this prompt to really understand the product on a level which is very detailed. Because as I said in the beginning, if I want to be concrete and want to be very specific, the model has to understand the product in like the most, like in the best way possible. And this results in a lot of like correcting and additional information and here and there. And as you can see, like the small thing there, if you scroll, it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. And also like, please don't read my prompts because I don't want my browser history deleted when I die. Please delete my prompt history. It's much more embarrassing. So these are the product models. These are the models I use when I write about a product or like I want to work with a product. And then last but not least, I have like service models, I call them. These are generally used for like simple tasks like improve my writing. Hey, here is the text. Please find all the errors and stuff like that. Or please convert it in a format that works good in Confluence and stuff like that. So it's not like product specific. It's much more workflow specific maybe. OpenAI did a release last week where they released a new feature called, I think, Create GPTs, which kind of replaces the need for especially the service models, but I think also like my other models. What you can do now is you can create GPTs with a specific mission, not prompts, but single GPTs. So what I did, and this doesn't work very well yet, but what I did is I replaced my prompt to improve my writing with a GPT who helps you improve your writing. So this is pretty interesting. I don't really got it to work yet because it's not even a week old. But generally speaking, what I think will happen in the future is that you will have different GPT models for different use cases, and even can let these GPT models collaborate with each other. So you could have a GPT model, maybe, I don't know, a software expert, and maybe a GPT model, I don't know, business expert, and you can let them talk with each other and so on. But yeah, generally speaking, it's the same idea. These have like specific use cases where they are used. So this is like how the setup is for the work, but let's get into the actual work itself. So what we're going to do is we start with a plain prompt or model. This model knows nothing about the software we are trying to build. It just has a lot of custom instructions. I can show you really quick, but it's probably like a whole topic for itself. So I just tell it, okay, I know about software development and how it should like output its ideas. This is nothing, you can just copy paste it and you get like the same results as myself. It's mostly for like reducing clutter. I don't want the AI to tell me it's an AI, or I don't want it to, if it doesn't know something, I want that it tells me that it doesn't know it. So yeah, it just helps generally with the workflow. And what we're going to do is, gonna quick. So maybe I show it to you in conference. It's a little bit more. Oh. What I did is I had a documentation of a use case. It's a real use case where we built a little application for. It's not important to understand it, but it describes, okay, you create something, you fill out some mandatory fields, there's some validation and so on. And I'm going to tell ChatGPT to just copy paste this like this. And I tell it, okay, here's a use case for a web application, please summarize it. And quick, I'm gonna get it over it. So ChatGPT does what it does, and he writes, or he or she, good question, it writes down what it thinks of it, what he thinks is the weaknesses are, and so on. And I just want to show you like how I can create content out of that. So generally speaking, I would say it's like if you have like a good source data, it's pretty accurate. But yeah, it can find some mistakes along the way, or you can find some mistakes along the way, but yeah, that's maybe like a topic in itself. So it writes about how it's understanding the case and so on, and you could correct it and say, this works this way, and so on. But we just assume it's right. So what we're going to do is first ask it for a recommendation about how we should write the Jira tickets. Like how should we structure it? What kind of Jira tickets would be a good idea for ChatGPT to write it? And you see, we get a little recommendation about how we should write it and like how we should structure it, not what every ticket should describe and so on. I think this take a little bit. Yeah, because of the time, I would just cancel it right here, but you get the idea. The next thing I would like it to do is to write me some test cases to this case. And I get like inspiration about, okay, maybe what should I test, and what are like good ideas, what are ideas about what should be tested. It will write about like 10 different test cases, I think, when I try it. And maybe this is like a lot of text and not very, not the format you want. So you can say, okay, please do it in like a markdown. Get it like this, and you can see it's pretty good in really simplifying or like breaking things down on a very precise way. So you get some tests out of your starting use case. Also, maybe we have to like check if we have everything done good. So let's do some diagrams. Let's have a look. What I can do now is this format is called Mermaid. In Draw.io, you can import these kind of format. Okay. So, and maybe I also want to have a sequence diagram. And generally speaking, like we did that on the app, and it's not that easy to find mistakes. Okay, I can show you a little bit what I found today. I'll show you. We can also, this is pretty new, create them inside ChatGPT with a plugin. So yeah, let's have a look when it's done, how it look. And keep in mind, I didn't give ChatGPT any new information when I created this content. This is all based on my original requirements. And what's also really cool is like you can change your starting point. You can start with maybe just an diagram, or you can start with tests. It's like the starting point where you start creating this kind of content is, up to you. What's generally important is the information that you give is correct. So maybe we come, because the time is already so advanced. Let's have a look.
Aren't the first ones already complete?
This one? Yeah.
The images.
Yeah, you can't really do an image inside ChatGPT without this add-on, but you can import it into Draw.io using Mermaid. But this plugin is also pretty nice because Draw.io or the Mermaid format doesn't really allow nice visualization. This add-on does. So let's see how it renders.
Question in between, how do you keep track of all your various contexts that you use? If this list can get longer and longer and longer, how do you know which one to take for your...
It's challenging. Yeah. Generally speaking, if you like train your AI and you want to revisit something, you just ask it again. Oh, I'm doing it. So it's not like a, yeah. Okay, maybe I can show you. Yeah. Okay. So it's a little bit zoomed in. I think AI diagram. Yeah. So you get this. And yeah, we are not like, there is a lot of more stuff you could do, just like maybe to finish it now. Maybe it should give me some personas who are part of this workflow. Yeah. Let's see, it will create some profiles for that and so on. So and that's like the very interesting thing about it. If you think about how much time it would take to create all this, we are not talking about like a 10x or probably like 100 times faster than you do it by yourself. And it's especially cool because you can like create these different kind of contents, then refeed it into ChatGPT and ask it, okay, do you find any inconsistencies in it? And so it's very easy to challenge your idea of the product in many different ways, which would take you hours upon hours before. The value of this different kind of content you create really depends on your like job you are doing, but the possibility to create it in such a fast way is really fascinating for me. So I'm gonna go back. Presentation. So at the end, I just want to talk a little bit what I think what should come next, or what would I love that come next, and some potentials I see in working with ChatGPT. Generally speaking, the biggest bottlenecks I currently encounter are like interface problems. So what's really, nerve-wracking is to take like information from one tool and put it in the next tool, or like from one AI to the next AI. What would be great if I could use ChatGPT, tell it, okay, put it in Figma, okay, put it there, and just like do it all by itself. It's not that possible. And generally speaking, the whole, like the interface and how you can extract information and stuff like that is really a big bottleneck for me personally right now. Also, ChatGPT has consistency problems when you work with it in a very detailed or long way. What I showed you, the prompt I used for MDB, it's like hundreds upon hundreds on lines, and ChatGPT kind of drifts when you work with it in a deep way, drifts or like builds an opinion about a product, which is hard to correct. So what you can happen is ChatGPT tells you, okay, we should do it this and that, and you say, no, let's do it differently. And maybe 10 prompts down the line, it brings that bad idea back, and you tell it, oh no, and it has no self-awareness. Or that's like not totally true, because if you tell it, it's excuses itself, says, sorry, I did it again, but it will do it again. So this is like a problem if you go really, really deep into problems. yeah, maybe. Oh, you find it good. Yeah, it's also it's kind of weird if you feel happy that you get good feedback from ChatGPT. If it says, "Oh, that's a good text," then thanks. But also, what happens with like language models is they like it's called hallucination. Like sometimes it brings out information which are neither in your input nor relevant for your output. They just appear. And it's very weird because, yeah, like, yeah, and you have to correct something which you didn't even intend to put out there. So that's also like, yeah, that's like kind of hinders you to work really deeply with ChatGPT. And for the potentials, what I really think would be cool is that you use a model as a documentation. So when you write documentation and you are done, the project is done, you pump the whole documentation in a model, and it learns everything. And when you get back to the project in 2 or 3 years, you just ask ChatGPT, hey, how does this work? What did we do at the later stages? What are the problems? And so on. And just have like documentation models for all the tools you build. Also, I think you could do really crazy rapid prototyping if this interface problem would be fixed. Because if all tools you need and also like the deployment, stuff like that are connected and like managed by the AI, I think you could really deploy like simple prototypes while in a meeting with a customer and talk about it. Because it's generally only like an interface problem, not really like a knowledge problem or anything. Also, I think what could be interesting is to have ChatGPT do estimations. Like if you do an estimation poker, why not have like a neutral, additional entity, ChatGPT, to estimate with you? And if it has a way of estimation as you or your team, you can ask it, why is it? And then, maybe there's some interesting information about it. And also it would be interesting who is like better at estimating. ChatGPT is pretty good. Yeah. Yeah, you could do it this way. Good, you could also like, yeah. Yeah, and last but not least, I also think the kind of teams you will build if you like leverage AI could really change. Like one thing you see when you talk about how to build software development teams, you talk a lot about T-shaped persons on cross-functionalities and stuff like that. And what you're generally not doing a lot is talk about each individual person of a team. There's a, in my opinion, very cool there's a concept of how to build a team, so-called surgery teams. Fred Brooks talked about this in the, I think, 70s or 80s in the Mythical Man Month. And it's generally the idea that you have very small teams with very high autonomy of decision making. And with AI, you can tap into a lot of different disciplines in software development on a, let's say, beginner level. But so that means if you only are like 2 or 3 people, you can do like low level, almost everything using AI. And I generally think this will lead to much smaller teams having much more impact than before leveraging AI. Okay, so I'm a little bit over time. That's it from my side. Any questions? And thanks for your attention.
Thank you. Did you ever had context bleeding? I sometimes find that if I ask ChatGPT something, even in a new session, if it's very similar to a topic I previously asked it, it somehow keeps that stuff in mind and then bleeds it into your...
Yeah, I was wondering that too. I never heard of the concept of bleeding, so I'm not sure, but I also experienced that you kind of get a feeling, why does it know that?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Like,
Okay.
yeah, but I experienced that too. That I thought it goes way deeper than it actually like I would have expected it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you ever find a way how to get rid of that, that would also be interesting.
No, that's like one of the main things. Like sometimes you can like like destroy your model in like giving it information, and then you say, okay, I don't want to do it that way, and you don't get it out.
Yeah.
So it's just always comes back to this like I don't know decision or information, and you always correct it, but you don't get it out of the model. I didn't find a real way to fix that. But it's a known issue. It's like the consistency on long prompts. And also if you back reference, there are problems. And these problems also repeat itself. So maybe sometimes I have like, always forgets a module in my whole software. And I tell it, oh, you forgot that module again. Oh, yeah, sorry. And it like happens every third prompt. So
Okay.
no, I don't have a solution for that yet.
Are there some specific tasks you absolutely do not recommend ChatGPT?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I think what's important is what you have to understand is that you don't, like if you use ChatGPT, you are still responsible for the result. So it's not like you can give it to ChatGPT and it's done. No, you get it back and you have it for yourself, and you have, it would be good that you understand it because like you are still responsible for that. So it kind of just helps you to execute things. It doesn't really like, solve the whole problem for you. You still have to get the result and go that. And then I think it's like personal preference where you use it, but I don't think like, okay, especially like, okay, you can't use like customer data and stuff like that, of course, like personal data, I wouldn't dump into ChatGPT, but that's probably the only thing I can think of where I would say that's like a red line you shouldn't cross.
Okay.
And generally, it's very funny. I saw a tweet. You just have to ask ChatGPT to do something, and it can do way more than you think. I saw a tweet where someone said, hey, can ChatGPT, I think, export MP4 format? And one of the like main OpenAI guys says, yes, just ask it. And then, did you know that it could do this? No, I just asked it. So there's even like in the OpenAI world, they are not 100% sure what it can do and can't do. And you just have to ask it. Yeah.
Thank you.
So the base of your context, is it always just text, or did you give it other things as well, like maybe images that it could dissect to? And if you did that, how well did it work with the text that you gave it? So is that context really also medium agnostic?
Yeah, like the new version of ChatGPT can, like I think like for 2 weeks ago or something like that, can use pictures, and it's pretty good with it. Like I start like the example I showed you. I also started with like the UML diagram itself, and say, okay, write me some test cases, write me the user story. It can do it perfectly. Also, what I did is I took a product and took screenshots of every page, like 10 pages, and give it all ChatGPT and ask it after that, okay, what does it do? And tell me the features, and it tells you the features in a, not like, I would say like 7 out of 10 points. It's not perfect, but it can do it. And what I also saw, which is, I think, totally crazy, is you can like, someone wrote a script, don't ask me how, to screen share his screen with ChatGPT. And he works in Blender, which is like a 3D modeling software, and activated like the voice communication, and then worked with ChatGPT in a way that, okay, I want to do this, and ChatGPT voice feedback, okay, do this. How do I make round corners? You do, and you like feed your screen into ChatGPT in real-time mentoring, which is crazy. Yeah, so there's like a lot of things, and these are all very new things. Like they weren't there like 1 or 2 months ago. Yeah, it's crazy. Any more questions? Okay. Then thank you very much for your time. I hope it was interesting for you. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. And yeah, thanks.